Hello, bonjour, salibonani, and dumelang. Welcome to Mind Games. I'll be your host, Bame. Earlier this week, I sat with two mental health activists, Sadie and Ratanang, and we discussed whether there are enough resources for mental illness patients in Botswana and if that care is affordable. Without further ado, here's the video. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Mind Games. So, this is Sadie and this is Ratanang. Do you guys mind introducing yourselves?
Hello, my name is Sadie. I'm a mental health activist.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Ratanang and I'm a mental health activist as well.
I'm very grateful that you guys could make it today.
Yes.
So today we'll be talking about the resources that are available for mental illness patients in Botswana and if they are actually affordable for the general public. And I was thinking that we could start talking about on a global scale, what resources are available to mental illness patients.
So would know that globally the UN and the WHO shows that only 4% of the global health budgeting goes to mental health, and that's in a global space. And so when it then translates down to us here in Botswana, it's worse, right? I think the resources are there. We know that there's a mental hospital, you can be able to get social workers and psychologists, but the question really is around, is it enough? Does it aim to serve the people truly? Does it reach everyone? Does it reach people in Shakashogwe or Kanye, or even just people in Gaborone? So I think there are resources, but they're not enough. There's a lot that still could be done. Yeah.
Sadie?
I'd say globally, maybe it's getting there. It's getting there in terms of being enough. But for our own country, I don't think we're there yet. We are far away. We are far.
And talking about having psychiatrists and psychiatric nurses in clinics around Botswana, I know that the Ministry of Health did put out a paper saying that in each clinic in Botswana there is a psychiatrist that comes at least once a month. But what does that translate to in a village or in a place where you might have more than 2 or 3 people that actually deal with mental health problems? What does that mean for them? If a person is only coming once in a month and evidently they can only do so little in the time that they're there?
I think the question should be really, are the people aware of that paper? Are the people aware of that service that is said to be available in clinics?
Yeah.
Because can somebody just go to the clinic and say, you know what, I'm not feeling well. This is how I feel in terms of describing depression, symptoms.
Yeah.
Is the nurse available to help that person right there and refer them to the relevant officer?
Yeah, I think another important thing, Bame, is we need to decolonize and deconstruct mental health. Because oftentimes when we talk about mental health, we think depression.
Of course.
Yes.
And that is why most of our services would be to take someone to a mental hospital, because there's an imbalance, right?
Yeah.
But there's so much to mental health. So there's depression, there's bipolar, there's just counseling.
Anxiety.
And I think once we look at mental health from that perspective, from a human perspective, and that mental health has to hold while. We have mental health issues.
Yeah.
So it's important to look at it from that angle. And once we've looked at it from that angle, then we're able to properly provide services that are targeted, right?
Yeah.
So I get to make it so like a taboo for people to say that I'm not alright.
Yeah.
It could be that I've just tested positive to HIV. It could be that I've lost my mother. It could be that my boss is a real. My boss is bad. It could be that I'm having financial issues.
Yeah.
My wife is cheating on. There's a lot of there's an area of issues that we need to look at and have different interventions in that regard.
And I think in you talking about how we actually regard mental health in Botswana and just generally mental health, like you say, everybody has mental health, and then there's mental illness. And I think, like you said, once we actually come to a point where we all agree and we recognize that we have to take care of our mental health, that's when we can actually recognize the different mental illnesses that people deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So it's not like Sadie said, the resources might be available as little as they are, but it goes back to, do the people actually know that they are available for them, and when do they use them? Because I don't think that a person in Takatokwani knows that there's actually a psychiatric nurse or doctor that comes in once in a month to check up on them.
It's not a one blanket, one big blanket that feeds everything. That's why and in us decolonizing mental health, we're then able to have honest and open conversations around it.
Yeah.
We're then able to describe mental health in our languages in an affirmative way. Because it's easier to describe mental health what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
But so the way that we need to own it and then bring it to our space, to speak about it from an affirmative point of view, to speak about it from a positive light.
Of course.
To say, it's okay to talk to someone. To say to a man, you lose nothing.
Nothing.
And saying to Motona Lengene, and there are a lot of us mental health but we don't realize that a lot of us every day your boss has pissed the hell out of you. You go home, you have a joint and some drinks, and you don't realize that you're self-medicating. Right?
Definitely.
So we need to have those honest conversations without necessarily saying Professor what said this. No, let's bring them to our conversations and have them as openly and honest as possible.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And talking about self-medicating, since we're talking about resources to deal with mental illness, I think as the youth, especially in Botswana, the resource that is most available to us and that we use the most is self-medicating through alcohol and through drugs. And when you see somebody getting drunk every day, we never actually want to ask if they're going through something, if this is coming from somewhere. It's always and we all laugh about it and we join you again for a drink tomorrow. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but there are stages to it. If you understand where our mental health is and then you see a shift in someone, it's about asking the right questions and also figuring out where you stand and where other people in your life stand as well. So we go ahead.
I think also maybe the education part about mental illnesses, we need to say them, we need to list them, we need to say them out for people to know. There's schizophrenia, there's bipolar, there's depression. We are a community. We live with other people. You know your friends, you know your family. If you know about schizophrenia, you're able to deduce those symptoms from a loved one, to know okay, this is this, and maybe just push them to maybe get help.
The other thing is that when we talk about mental health, we need to stop, and I keep going back to decolonizing, deconstructing is that we speak about mental health from a very negative point of view.
We do.
You should have no. We need to also learn to speak about mental health from a point of hope, a point of perseverance, a point of strength. So let's see people and let's hear stories of people saying but sharp, I wake up and I go to work and I take care of my responsibilities. Let's see people who are schizo, who are schizo, who are this, say this condition. But I wake up, I take my meds, I do this, and this works. And let's look at non-traditional methods of doing it, because therapy will not work for everyone. And it's not everyone who will be able to go and see my Namang. And you said something about self-medicating, is that sometimes he said to me, because it sounds like the cheapest, almost the cheapest form of therapy, but it's very minimal. So we need to have those conversations and allow the spaces that we're in.
And those conversations can only be had when we feel that the stigma is maybe not there. We need to remove that stigma. When it's removed, people are able to just open up and say, you know what, Bame, I've been diagnosed with clinical depression, or I've been diagnosed with bipolar, and I'm on meds, or I see a psychiatrist every week, So it goes back to Kenya stigma. Let's just work around
stigma. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges that we have in Botswana with regards to resources towards mental health. We've touched a little bit on stigma. Now we'll just take a quick break while we soak all of this in, and Mind Games will be right back. Welcome back to Mind Games. We're still sitting and chatting to Sadie and Ratanang. Just before the break, we were talking about the challenges faced by Botswana in trying to get help when they're faced with mental health issues. Now we're going to continue on the topic, talking about therapy and medication in Botswana and moving on to non-traditional means of dealing with mental health. So I just wanted to let you guys know, I was looking for a therapist when I moved back home. So I've been looking for a therapist, and I have to say that the beginning of it was very weird. I didn't know if there was a directory where I could look up a therapist to begin with, and finding a therapist that you actually feel like you can talk to was a challenge as well, because as most people would know, you won't necessarily be comfortable with every therapist that you have. So, and like I said, therapy is in Botswana, if you're looking for a private therapist, it's not cheap. It doesn't come cheap. And so I was just thinking about what other means are available to Botswana that are cheap and that are non-expensive and that are good, besides the traditional ones. We're talking therapy and we're talking medication. So outside of therapy and medication, what other avenues can Botswana pursue in trying to deal with that mental illness?
Okay, so I'm generally don't spend if you don't have to type of guy, right? So for me, is if you can get it without paying, then that's just the important part. And for me, around dealing with mental health issues is fundamentally around self, right? Yeah. So for me, what is very important is for people to understand the importance of space and time, right? Space in terms of where you are professionally, space in terms of where you are financially, space in terms of where you are with people around you. Yeah. And I often say that, you know, when you willingly decide to be in certain spaces. So for me is look around, look at the people that you hang out with, the people that you talk to, the people that you spend your time with. How does that affect you? So for me is without having to go to therapy, and we all know our friends. Now the friends that you know, you'll give a call if you need to borrow 200 kula to buy a bottle of something. There is a friend that you know you would tell when you have a job interview. Yeah. There's a friend that you know you talk to about matlaka, right? Yeah. So it's important to know your spaces and manage it and monitor it, and not to be so hard on yourself, right? So that's for me the first one. Second one is know your triggers. Yeah, you know, knows what triggers you and manage it. Yeah. So how is it? Trigger. Manager if you can still drink from home, don't go to a bar. Kana how you to the couple don't go to spaces that you know you'll be there. Just manage them and then come back to reality. So for me, space, time are very important, and it's the self that you can be. It's friendships, it's circles, and I say this all the time. It's okay to decide to break up from a friendship. Yeah, definitely. Or a relationship that you think, this relationship leaves me drained and this and this. It's okay to just say it's over. Yeah. You know, I'll see you in the shops and be on some, hey girl, it's a Brazil. But we ain't rolling like that anymore. And it's important to, mental health is everything. Yeah.
For me, I think I volunteer for an organization, Ibijua Botswana Network for Mental Health. They advocate for mental health awareness and just trying to counter stigma around issues of mental health and mental illness. So we do a lot of education, we do a lot of walks for awareness, we do a lot of... Recently we just started a support group. Oh. Every fortnight we just post and invite people to just come and sit and listen and talk if they want to talk. Just to debrief. It's called debriefing. You know, we deal with a lot of things. Sometimes you can't talk to your friend or your family, but if you feel it's people who can relate to whatever you're going through, become easier. Or even strangers, you know, these people don't know me from anywhere, so what do I have to do? Yeah. You know, you you are able to just open up and do that.
And Bame, it goes back to the earlier conversation of let's find affirmative words to explain mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's bring it to our everyday, ordinary Motswana lives. Let's deconstruct it. Are we finding mahoko a siameng ka Setswana ka sekalaka that can be able to describe mental health? Because
Like
then ka sebirwa kana, then it's lighter to talk about.
Yeah.
But for now it's big terms. It's mental health. Then you must go for therapy. Then you must be on medication. But when we
Definitely.
bring it to our context and to our space, then we're able to have a conversation about it. And find ways and little things that will not be as costly for you to deal with your mental health. What our triggers are things that we know very well. Because while peace. But there you are, you remove money which you already don't have to get him to a cab, to give your whole body to his house just to irritate you.
Yeah.
So it's really just being aware of spaces around you and how you want to be seen, where you want to be in that space.
Yeah.
You share common goals.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's important.
So it's about understanding yourself, understanding your mental health, and also creating spaces that you feel comfortable in and other people can feel comfortable in.
Spaces are important,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Spaces are important in that they allow you to be who you are and they allow you to be vulnerable. But
Yeah.
you're aware that this is a safe space and I can then be vulnerable in this space. I can let myself be vulnerable in this space for you to give me a hug. I can. This toughness of ke sharp, it's not working, it's killing us. And that's why people are committing suicide. That's why people are getting diagnosed triple or quad other things. So it's important, space is important where you are and where you choose to be. It's extremely important because it affects you.
I don't think as young people specifically, we actually want to acknowledge our mental health issues until it gets to a point where it's not manageable. It's very easy to see yourself falling into certain trends. For example, if we're talking about depression, it's easy for you to see yourself not being able to do the things that you would normally do. Being home every day, not being able to see people. But we wait for it to get to a point where you need medication, where you need to go to therapy. Whereas we can, in the beginning, find ways to manage it. Personally, I manage my mental health through writing, through listening to poetry. So it's about, in finding a space, I believe it's also about finding an outlet. Because everything that we've been talking about in terms of resources is you vocalizing what's inside of you to somebody else or through something. And when I say vocalizing, I just don't mean through your voice. Your voice can be painting. Your voice can be helping other people. It can be doing anything that lets you feel, you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, but then work through it. Because I think one of the other things, going back to talking about self-medicating, is we don't want to face the problem. We want to overstep the problem. So you drink so that you forget. And I don't think it's an issue of forgetting, because when you forget, you don't seek help. You don't use the resources or even find out what resources are available. But if you recognize your problem and you want to face it head on, then it allows you to actually look at what options are available to you. And maybe in looking for those options, you can also help other people around you to find the options themselves.
Yeah, and why it's important to bring it to how we understand it is that what we're talking about, Bame, able to see a therapy, able to look at yourself, that's privilege, right? So being able to decide, I'm not feeling well, let me paint, let me go sing, let me go dance, that's a certain level of privilege that many people do not have, right? So we need to look at it from that perspective, that the same privileges that you and I can have to be able to go to an art school, to an art and paint. There are people who don't even understand. There are people who don't know what they're going through. I said at the launch that I said to my father last December, because I didn't want to go home for Christmas. And I said to him, I'm not coming home because that piece. But so my dad said, why? I said, because I feel this way. And my dad says, but I felt that way for the past 10 years, right? So you find people who have been depressed, who are dealing with mental health, but they're not aware that they have mental health
and they're not
illnesses.
even aware that they're not alone, because they don't hear who we work in Tata. We get to hear and stuff. We get to hear about so many pizzos. When are we going to have a pizzo about mental health? Everybody has mental health, right? Everybody. We might not have mental illnesses, but rotely we have mental health. So
Yeah.
I think we should do something about that.
Yeah.
You guys,
Definitely.
we should have a mental health pizza.
So that's the question. When are we having the next mental health pizza? I'm still sitting with Ratanang and Sadie, and we're just gonna have a quick break and we'll be right back. This is Mind Games. And so that brings us to the end of today's episode. Once again, I would like to thank Ratanang and Sadie for bringing us their insight into mental health. If you would like to follow them and find out more about their work, here are their social media pages. Thank you again for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And for future episodes of Mind Games, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you again and see you soon.